ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Put the date. Written, beta.
Yes, ma'am.
Should wizard hit mommy? Here is a story about the worldview of a little child and the difficult moral questions she raises during the story session with her father. Now, in the evenings and for Saturday naps, what is a nap? A short sleep. Write the meanings as well. A short sleep. Like today's, Jack told his daughter Jo a story out of his head. Out of his head, matlab he made his story on his own. And evenings and
Good morning, ma'am.
good morning, beta. For Saturday naps means Saturday in the afternoon, Jack used to tell his daughter stories that was made by him only. This custom, what is a custom? A trend, you know, a tradition, okay? This custom began when she was 2 years, was itself now nearly 2 years old, and his head felt empty. Now, this habit of telling the story started when Joe was 2 years old, and now that Joe was already 4 years old, okay? Uh, Father, now he told so many stories that now he doesn't have any other ideas, any creative ideas to tell a story. Each story was a slight variation. Variation, got it? A little bit different of a basic tale. A small creature, usually underlined, named Roger, Roger Fish, Roger Squirrel, Roger Chipmunk, had some problem and went with it to the wise old owl. Okay. Now, most of the stories that Jack told Joe, you know, it used to revolve around the same plot in which an animal was there and the name was Roger. Okay, it had a common name and it was named as Roger. And in every story, though, Roger used to be a different animal. Okay, and it had some kind of problem. So whenever the animal had some kind of problem, he would go to the wise old owl. And the owl told him to go to the wizard, and the wizard performed a magical spell that solved the problem, demanding in payment a number of pennies greater than the number that Roger creature had. अब क्या होता था बेटा, the Roger main character वही होता था, लेकिन it had different animals. और उन animals को some or the other problem was there and they just went to the wise old owl. Wise old owl के पास जाते तो he used to advise them to go to the wizard and that could solve the problem. And then after helping them, wizard would ask, okay, the animal to pay him pennies, but the animal did not have the number of pennies that were asked by the wizard. Okay, so what did the wizard do? But in the same breath, directing the animal to a place where the extra pennies could be found. But he used to direct, means he used to tell the animal to go at such and such place, such and such place, and there he could find extra pennies. Then Roger was so happy he played many games with other creatures and went home to his mother just in time to hear the train whistle that brought his daddy home from Boston. So now उसके बाद when the problem was solved, Roger creature इतना खुश हो जाता था that he went home, he played with other animals and until he could listen to the whistle of the train that brought his daddy back home from Boston. Okay, Jack describes their supper and the story was over. और फिर Jack क्या करता था, वो सारा supper evening meal describe करता था कि mom, dad और वो creature क्या क्या खाते. Working his way through this scheme was especially fatiguing, means very tiring. Write down tiresome, very tiring. Very tiring. Exhausting. On Saturday, because Joe never fell asleep in naps anymore, and knowing this made the right means custom. seem futile. Futile is useless or pointless. Now what happened? Now it had become a daily routine. So Jack, he started getting tired of this routine every day. Okay, because now he ran out of the ideas. Now so many stories he had narrated that now he does not get any new idea which story to narrate. Okay, and now Joe also, she did not went to sleep, especially on Saturdays, while listening to the story. And जैक को ये फील होने लगा कि ये स्टोरी टेलिंग क्या है, एक तरह का वो बन गया है, वेस्ट ऑफ टाइम हो गया है, एंड देयर वाज नो पॉइंट इन डूइंग इट, है ना। मतलब ये जो ये जो उसने कस्टम, ये जो ट्रेडिशन की तरह स्टोरी टेलिंग शुरू करा था ना, इट हैड बिकम फ्यूटाइल, इट हैड बिकम यूजलेस। फॉलोड?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
ओके। The little girl, not so little anymore, the bumps her feet made under the covers were halfway down the bed. And notice करता है कि जो है, now she wasn't so small, she's growing big. Okay, और अपने legs वगैरह stretch कर लेती है half the way into the bed. Uh, yes, had at last arranged herself, and from the way her fat face deep in the pillow shone in the sunlight, shifting through the drawn shades, it did not seem fantastic that some magic would occur and she would take a nap like an infant or two. Now, Joe had not noticed that the daughter, she's growing big, and she had already grown big. Why? Because earlier she was hardly 2 years old, but now she is 4 years old, and she stretches her leg down the bed and to listen to the story. But the light, it was coming in through the window over her face. Okay, and her face was there deep in the pillow. तो जैक समझ गया that she won't be sleeping soon. Why? Because रोशनी होती है कमरे में तो बच्चे आसानी से नहीं सोते हैं ना. When there is darkness, yes, while listening to the story, they just go to sleep. तो जैक समझ जाता था that it would be difficult for her to take any naps. Her brother Bobby was 2 and already asleep with his bottle. Jack asked, "Who shall the story be about today?" अब Jack समझ तो जाता है कि today it would be difficult for this girl to sleep. Why? Because a lot of light, brightness, it was coming, है ना, through the window. And on the other hand, his son Bobby, who was 2 years old, he had gone to sleep with his bottle. He was drinking milk, and while drinking milk, he went to sleep. अब जैक जब स्टोरी शुरू करता है तो डॉटर से पूछता है, what shall the story be about? Okay. Roger Joe squeezed her eyes shut and smiled, to be thinking. She was thinking. Her eyes opened. Her mother's blue skunk, she said firmly. Now, see, beta. Jack asked Joe that who should be the story about. Okay. और कुछ पल तो वो सोचती है बच्ची, and then she says that the story should be about a skunk. What I said, skunk is an animal. It is found in America, maybe south or north, I'm not sure, but it is found in America. And its body smell is very bad. Okay, very, very bad. So none of the animals, they come near him. A new animal, they must talk about skunks at nursery school. अब जैक सोचता है कि हाँ, it is a new animal. Surely she must have heard about the animal in the school. Having a fresh hero momentarily steered Jack to creative enthusiasm. एकदम से fresh hero, he had to tell the story on a fresh hero. Okay, so he had to do creative enthusiasm, means he had to be creative, and he had to be enthusiastic, and he had to think about the plot. So he says, all right, and then he begins the story. Once upon a time in the deep dark woods is the forest, There was a tiny little, अब ये main story है, ध्यान से सुन लेना, okay? अब how she sat in the bed and what were her gestures, ये सब इतने important नहीं है, ये ध्यान से सुनना. Once upon a time in the deep dark woods, there was a tiny little creature by the name of Roger skunk, and he smelled very bad. Okay, now the story begins, and as always, a story, it begins as once upon a time. एक बार की बात है, या एक समय की बात है. तो similarly, even he begins कि deep dark woods में है ना, a deep forest में एक tiny little creature he used to live, and his name was Roger skunk, and he smelled very bad. Yes, Joe said. He smelled so bad that none of the other little woodland creatures would play with him. अब वो कहता है कि वो इतना स्मेल करता था एनिमल कि none of the other little animals है ना, baby animals जो दूसरे थे, they did not play with him. Joe looked at him solemnly. She hadn't foreseen this. Whenever he would go out to play, अब जो काफी seriously daughter को देखता है और उसको आगे story he proceeds with कि जब जब है ना वो जाता था है ना खेलने Roger skunk. Jack continued with zest, means enthusiasm, remembering certain humiliations of his own childhood. Okay, now see, when he was telling the story, he says ki हाँ, this little animal, whenever he went to play with the other animals, and then at that moment he remembers or he recollects certain humiliations, certain insults that even he faced during his childhood. तो वो उसको याद आ जाते हैं. तो all of the other tiny animals would cry, oh, here comes Roger Stinky skunk. और जो सारे एनिमल्स होते थे ना, बेबी एनिमल्स, सब जोर जोर से उसको टीज करते थे कि स्टिंकी स्टिंकी इज वन हु स्मेल्स वेरी बैड. Stinky skunk had come, and they would run away, and Roger skunk would stand there all alone, and two little round tears would fall from his eyes. अब सारे animals on smelling, okay, his bad odor or his bad smell of the body, they used to run away, and he alone used to stand there, this little animal. Two little round tears means he used to cry. He felt very bad. He felt very insulted when all the other animals, they ran away. Now, the corners of Joe's mouth drooped down and a lower lip bent forward as he traced with a forefinger along the side of a nose the course of one of Roger's tears. Now, Jack, he notices that Joe was getting very anxious, okay? And so he was not in a mood of rushing up with the story. ठीक है? और देखता है कि जो के माउथ एक्सप्रेशंस चेंज हो जाते हैं, लोअर लिप बेंट हो जाती है, and she tries to feel the tears of Roger's skunks. Won't he see the owl? She asks in a high and faintly roughened voice. अब daughter पूछती है कि भाई, isn't he going to visit the owl? Are you getting it, beta?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Sitting on the bed beside her, Jack felt the covers tug as her legs switched tensely. He was pleased with this moment. He was telling her something true, something she must know, and had no wish to hurry. Now see, Jack, he was not in a hurry to finish up the story, and he wanted to make the story more intense. Why? Because he wanted to convey a message, okay, to his children through this story. So he was not in a hurry to complete it. But downstairs a chair scraped. Scraped means it made a very concrete sound, a very harsh sound. And he realized he must get down to help Claire paint the living room woodwork. और जैसे ही chair move होती है, he listens. उसको लगता है कि he must complete the story and he must go down to help Claire. Claire means his wife, who was painting the living room. So she was all alone, and as she was expected to deliver a third child, तो उसको लगता है that I must go and help Claire. Well, he walked along very sadly and came to a very big tree, and in the tip top of the tree was an enormous wise old owl. Now, this Roger skunk, this baby skunk, he started crying, and then when all the animals they ran away, he was left all alone. So he walked very slowly, and he came to a big tree, or uske tip top on the top of the tree. There was an enormous wise old owl. Good, Mr. Owl, Roger skunk said. All the other little animals they ran away from me because I smelled so bad. So you do, the owl said, very, very bad. What can I do? Roger skunk said, and he cried. Now see, Roger skunk, when he comes to the owl, he says, Mr. Owl, all the other little animals, they just run away from me whenever I went. Okay, whenever I go to them to play. Why? Because my body smell is very bad. Of course it is, the owl said, very, very bad. Okay, but what can I do now? Roger skunk ने पूछा मैं क्या करूं? The wizard Joe shouted and sat right up, and a little golden book spilled from the. Now, before father could answer, this little girl, she jumps up in a bed and starts shouting, Ki wizard, wizard. Okay, and a book it falls from the bed. Now, Joe, daddy's telling the story. Do you want to tell daddy the story? Okay. Now, this interference, Jack did not like it. तो कहते हैं कि जो now daddy is telling the story, okay, and do you want your father to tell you the story, right? No, you me, but she refuses, okay, है ना? And then lie down and be asleep. तो फादर को गुस्सा आ जाता है, उसको कहते हैं of course then lie down, okay, I'll not tell you the story and go to sleep. Her head relapsed. Relapse का मतलब होता है it slid back, it went back onto the pillow, and she said, out of your head, come on, you tell me the story. Well, the owl thought and thought, and at last he said, why don't you go and see the wizard? Okay. और जो owl था, he thought and thought very hard, और finally वो decide करता है और उसको कहता है you better go and see the wizard, मतलब go and meet the wizard. Now, daddy, what are magic spells real? अब she wanted to get it confirmed कि ये जो magic वगैरह होता है ये real होता है कि नहीं. This was a new phase just this last month, a reality phase. Now, this was a very new phase she had come across, okay? And ये इसी month से शुरू हुआ है, एक reality phase है ये. When he told her spiders eat bugs, she turned to her mother and asked, do they really? अब ये एक न्यू फेज, एक न्यू एंजाइटी, एक एंथुजियाज्म इट हैज डेवलप्ड इन हिज डॉटर, और उसको ध्यान आता है कि जब उसने अपनी डॉटर को बताया था कि स्पाइडर्स दे ईट बग्स, तो अपनी मदर से उसने कंफर्म करा था, ओके, डॉटर ने डू दे रियली. और जब क्लेरे ने उसको बोला कि सॉरी बेटा, आई एम हैविंग अ वेरी बैड थ्रोट, और जब वाइफ ने उसको बोला कि God was in the sky and all around them, तो she gets it confirmed from her father, okay. So she turned to her father और insist करती with a sly yet eager smile, is he really, okay, क्या वास्तव में वो है. Now they are real in stories, लेकिन अब father जब वो wizard के लिए पूछते तो father कहते हैं of course they are real in stories, okay. Jack answered curtly, fatafat short, in a very short manner he answered. She had made him miss a beat in the narrative. The owl said, go through the dark woods under the apple tree into the swamp and over the creek. Okay, creek is a little river, right? और फिर उसको कहते हैं कि जो आउल होता है वो उसको इंस्ट्रक्ट करता है, कहता है नाउ यू गो थ्रू द डार्क वुड्स यानी डार्क फॉरेस्ट में से निकलो, and then you cross the apple trees and the swamp is the marshy land जो दलदल होता है, and then over the creek you cross it and you will reach his house. Understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure, beta?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
enough for today.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, bye. Take care. Okay.